So, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Grazenda, MSMCP board member. Today we have a presentation from Pitt Grewe. He's the head of public land partnerships, and he's going to be telling us about sort of a new program or initiative called the Public Lands Partnership that allows land managers like ourselves to actually have some input on editing the mapping information and the material that AllTrails is showing on their public site. I will say, and many of you probably also during COVID, AllTrails was like my saving grace when we are all sort of working remotely, not allowed to cross state borders. And I know many people sort of went on a little scavenger hunt finding local trails in other towns. And at the time, AllTrails was just a fabulous resource because you could look up loops to do. You can say, I want to do an 8-mile hike in Harvard, Mass. And I could find a couple opportunities and I can download it. And it's like lifetime, blue dot where you're located, and you could record your track. And it was fabulous. However, there were some of those loops where on mile 6 of 8 of a loop, I came to a private trail that was posted, no trespassing. And I was conflicted on, the right thing to do would be to turn around and retrace my 6 miles. The wrong thing to do would be to trespass and get yelled at on a trail. Or there's sort of a hybrid, which is like, okay, I'm going to bushwhack through the woods and maybe not be seen, try to get back on the other side where the house can't see me. But it left me feeling awkward and frustrated. So it was one of those things that I really, I even emailed AllTrails a couple times to be like, how do we correct this? I've heard from land managers and conservation agents about this, trails shown on AllTrails that are private or just a residence trail that they use, but it's shown on AllTrails. So people are, accessing it, and it causes frustration and, uncomfortable situations. So I was thrilled when I heard just a couple months ago that AllTrails has created this public lands partnership to incorporate feedback from land managers and allow access to your trails on AllTrails to help correct data to make sure it's accurate. It also allows land managers to put up trail warnings or temporary trail closure alerts if there's an issue. And this is one of the best apps, I think, to sort of provide information to our trail users because so many people use AllTrails. So with that, I'm going to introduce Pitt. Pitt is the head of Public Lands Partnership. He's been working in the outdoor industry for 20 years. From resort operations to public service, he has always focused on helping people get outside and find a connection with our public lands. In this role, he is helping land managers reach AllTrails users with critical information and get access to important trail user data trends to keep people safe and protect our public lands. Before joining AllTrails, Pitt served as the director of the Division of Outdoor Recreation in the state of Utah. He loves working with the many outdoor recreation stakeholders to increase funding, harbor collaboration, and educate communities on the benefits of getting outside. He is always up for an adventure on a trail, a river, a cliff face, or in the snow. So welcome, Pitt, to our talk today.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here. Excited to tell you all more about the Public Lands Program. Thanks for the introduction and kind of the background on your experience and how you came to the program. That's helpful. I think a lot of you will be able to relate to that. And so I'm excited to tell you a little bit about this. I'm going to run through some slides, run through the program a little bit, but obviously leave time for answering questions because I know there's a lot of questions that pop up from this as everybody's trail systems are unique across this country and across the world, and how you manage them and how they're funded and how they're taken care of and everything else. So, the questions pop up that are specific to your area. Want to be sure to take some time to answer that. So as I'm going through this, feel free to pop questions into the chat, and at the end we will we'll address it and talk about it. lastly, I'm excited to kind of give a little background and hopefully be very transparent with you of, how this program came about. And also, there's still imperfections always with what we're doing at AllTrails and how we're helping people get outside, but also that comes with some challenges with getting people outside. So I hope to be transparent in that, and always interested in getting feedback from you of what's happening in your part of the world so that we can help to mitigate those issues and learn from that. That's the other part of this public lands program, is not just the access for you to edit and things like that, but it's a feedback loop for us to understand what's better happening on the ground and how we can build a product to help support the things that you're doing and support users having a better experience on public lands and everything else and on the trails. So with that, I am going to share my screen. All right, so I'm going to give a little background quickly on AllTrails. As Michelle said, right, we're probably the most trusted and used outdoor platform in the world. Our app helps people to discover and navigate trails in their neighborhood and wherever you go. So everybody has kind of different uses for it. I live in Utah. I live in Salt Lake City. I know my trails in my backyard pretty well. I don't necessarily need AllTrails to tell me how to get to the trailhead and where to start on my local trail where I'll go for a morning hike or something. But when I travel or I'm in a new spot, obviously AllTrails can become a huge resource for helping me discover a trail that I can get on and get nearby. Or it can also be a way for me to be inspired to travel to a new place because I do discover a new trail that I want to go try. And maybe that's where I make my weekend plans or my summer vacation trip or something to go to a certain area based off of trails that I've seen. So our goal is to kindle the spirit of adventure for everyone. We want to help people be happy and healthy by connecting them to the outdoors. And that is also kind of the idea of democratizing the ability to get outside. Oftentimes people are nervous to go out for their first time because, they're not sure if they can handle the hike, or they're not sure how to get started, what they need to prepare. What we're trying to do is hopefully make that information easy to access, and give people the chance to get outside for whether it's their first time or whether they're experienced, but feel confident that they can have a great day out and be prepared, and have the information in their pocket that they need. So it's not intimidating or scary to get out into the outdoors. Like I mentioned, we use AllTrails as kind of trying to manage this whole member journey, of being a resource for inspiring and discovery, maybe finding a new place, doing their research and their planning. Then the on-trail aspect of it, like navigating, tracking, if you're into that, tracking your mileage and where you're going and everything else. And then the post-activity side of things as well. This is where I think AllTrails also is a huge benefit, because we have the ability to get a lot of information, a lot of data from people out there on the trails. So what's happening on trails? How'd they experience it? What's their feedback? Were the bugs bad? Did they run into wildlife? Was the bridge out? All of that information is stuff we can get from our large user group. So how large is that user group? We have over 55 million active users worldwide. So by far, the largest. We have over 850 million miles of user recordings, people using that navigate feature. So we collect a lot of data on how people are interacting with your trail systems, what they're doing, where they're going, things like that. Over 400,000 curated trails. And I did see already a question in the chat, like how did these trails come about? How did we get 400,000 trails? Well, a lot of it is our team building it out, but then a lot of it is people recording themselves and submitting it and making it public. And that's where Michelle kind of said, well, is this the most accurate information? Because maybe they crossed a private land boundary, or they, went through a social trail and they just submitted that. Well, we want to refine that. And that's kind of the purpose of this, is we get a lot of trail submissions. Not all of them make it on. If we can easily see that it gets submitted to us. Our data team can see like, nope, this is crossing private property. Like, we're not going to make this live or make it a public trail route or something like that. We catch that, but we don't catch those all. That's where the help from the land managers on the ground help to refine that and improve that. And then again, just as far as trust goes, we are pretty highly trusted. We have over 1 million 5-star reviews on the app stores. People are using us and trusting us to be the ultimate source for trail information. So intro, the public lands program. So giving you a little bit of snapshots into what it is. Michelle kind of talked about kind of what the main purpose of it is. I can tell you how I got here. So when I was working for the state of Utah, I reached out to AllTrails because we were running a grant program where we were providing dollars and money from the legislature out to communities all over Utah to build out outdoor recreation infrastructure. So trail systems and trailheads and whatever. A lot of them were using them for, access points and easements and things like that to get their communities outside more. So I reached out to AllTrails because I said, you know what, we're having all these applications come in, hundreds of applications. We're giving out, $10 million a year in resources. It would really help if I had more hard data on, what traffic and demands were like on trail systems. Because we get a lot of applications that come in and say, we need money because our trail system is crazy. Well, trail system being crazy in rural Utah and may have 10 cars in the parking lot is a lot different than maybe in the Salt Lake where like crazy means hundreds of cars on a weekend, and so we want to see like, all right, what's the actual data of usage and things like that. So I reached out to AllTrails and I said, hey, is there any way I can buy data from you on usage for this, that to help us with this program, with our grant program and our planning? And they've said, no, we will not sell you data. That we are not in the data selling game. Like, that is not what we're doing. Our goal is to help people get outside and then also help prepare people for getting out there. I said, all right, what does that mean? They're like, well, we're working on something. Fast forward about another year and a half, they reached back out and they said, all right, Pitt, and I talked to them off and on for a year and a half kind of about the program. And they're like, all right, we're ready. We've launched our beta. We're testing it. Like, here's where it is where you can get access to data and everything else. And then a few short months later, I am working at AllTrails because I was so interested in this program and I was so interested in the work that they were doing as I could see it making a difference for so many people with the reach that they have and helping to communicate people. Another thing that really interests me about this was when I was working at the state through the pandemic, right? Like, the question we were always answering, whether it was myself and in my division or whether it was working with the Office of Tourism or local communities, is how do we get information about being safe or about being, the impacts to this trail or this thing? How do we get that to these new users? We can't, we were putting out press releases, we were putting out whatever, but we were trying to figure out where are people consuming this information. And what we found is AllTrails is not the ultimate source, but it is one of those sources. A lot of people were just Googling trails near me, while they're sitting home during the pandemic, and AllTrails was popping up as some of the top, SEO and Google results there. And so, we were talking about that as like, we need to access the AllTrails user to help us get the information about responsible recreation out and to help get information about protecting our trail systems and things like that. So program launched in 2022, a few beta testers. I had almost 100 people, 100 partners come on, start using it. And then I came on right at the end of 2022 and have been pushing this year to grow this program and really expand it. We're now up to just shy of about 175 partners that have come on this summer, and really, kind of growing and learning from all the different partner types. We have anything from a national park, we have, a few national parks on board, down to local communities, land trusts, even just bringing on one of the national, a national historical, site that has like 2-mile trail and that's all they manage, right? But they're interested in getting the information out through AllTrails. And so yeah, large to small, all these things that we can hopefully help people manage this. So, all right, let's get into this. What is it? Well, we want to keep visitors safe, informed, and on the right path. So 55 million active trail goers, there's a lot of responsibility there because they can make a big impact on our trail systems all over the world. So we want to identify when visitors are planning trips. We want to help you reach your audience with real-time seasonal alerts. We want to help you educate visitors about responsible recreation, maybe local laws, maybe local, best practices, things like that. And then ensure accuracy, obviously, of all the routes on AllTrails, so we can make sure people are having a great experience out there, not going out there, not getting lost, not getting 3 miles in and getting frustrated because the trail ends or there's a sign or something like that. But let's help these people have the best experience possible while they're out there. So how we do that, we provide you access to the kind of this user experience, or to the user, with this trusted and reliable data. We hopefully help to create better stewards of public lands, and then improve safety, reduce conflict, and attracting new explorers and retaining these people to become active trail users on and not just one-time users or one-time adventurers. So what does that look like? Well, again, I want to emphasize again and be very transparent. AllTrails has grown fast, and because of that, they have gotten a reputation of being the bane of existence for some land managers, because we're putting a lot of people on the land because people can easily find information about trail system, right? And if that information isn't accurate, obviously that's frustrating. And there's like, just the same as we all under our breath, cuss social media for ruining your favorite restaurant or your favorite trail or whatever, right? Because it all of a sudden blew up and got popular, and now you can't do it, right? Like that's kind of the same attitude as people would say, AllTrails, like this trail used to be great, then it went on AllTrails, and now it's so busy and there's too many people and there's dogs everywhere and people aren't cleaning up after their dogs, or people are leaving their garbage, whatever it is, right? And AllTrails has caught the brunt of that kind of dissent, and not gonna lie, we probably are contributing to some of that. So we're trying to mitigate that, and that's the problem. So I live here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Draper City is kind of a suburb of Salt Lake. I know Greg well. They have an amazing mountain bike trail system and hiking trail system right in the foothills of Salt Lake City. It's where I do most of my mountain bike rides and whatnot, and before work or after work. And so Greg came on as a partner, and we were interviewing him and talking to him after he'd been on for a few months. And I had the CEO of AllTrails on with us on this call, just to let Greg kind of vent and give feedback on how the program is. And he says to the CEO, he's like, I used to hate AllTrails, but now that you have this portal or this program, it's great. I love it. It's really helping me to change my attitude towards AllTrails, which hopefully we're doing with most of our partners. So the first aspect of this is the trail management side of things. And this is something that Michelle kind of spoke to, like giving you back-end access to edit and manage the trails in your area. So what happens as a partner, you come on, we onboard you, we assign you your trail specifically. You have permission to edit those. You don't get permission to edit all 400,000 trails on AllTrails, unfortunately. So that would be a bit overwhelming, and we would never want to throw that on anybody. But if you have 20 miles of trail, if you have 100 miles of trail, 200 miles of trail, whatever it is that you manage, or that you co-manage, let me add that as well. So if you're a municipality, oftentimes there's private land, easements, trusts, state land or whatever, but you're kind of the key manager of that trail system. You can have access to those trails as well. So what we do is we give you a login, you get access to your trails, and you would basically come to a page like this. You'd see this loop. This blue loop is the AllTrails route. Great. This Long Canyon Trail. Well, what can you do with it? Once you're logged in, you can adjust that. Maybe that's not the loop you want to have people go on, or maybe that's not ideal. So you can adjust those route lines. You can change the name of this. I found that is useful, right, for a lot of like search and rescue and things like that, to be consistent across how everybody knows. So the sheriff's office and search and rescue and fire department all are calling it the same name as the user, and when they're out there. So if they call in, they're not saying I'm on some random trail and everybody's like, I have no idea what that is, you know. So naming anything in the description. So if you want to write a new description or change or edit the information to help people be better prepared, to better understand where they're going. And then all the tags, you know, it's moderate, hard, just a loop, dogs allowed, bikes allowed, all of those things you want to do. All that can be edited and accessed. When you submit these edits, or when you create these edits, you still submit it. They still go to our data integrity team, you know, our moderating team. And so they'll look at it, make sure there's no hate speech, make sure that the elevation profile is correct, the mileage is correct, that it won't go out and be live with some, you know, major bug or details missing or anything like that. So it still gets moderated, but usually that's like a 24-hour turnaround. And the anything submitted, any of these edits submitted by partners, I think has like a 92% approval rate. So pretty much, you know, a grade for partners that are making edits across the board within the program. Again, this is another place where you can convey specific rules, you know, in the description, things like that. Really cool. It's a bit of a headache to start, right? Again, if you have 200 different trails that you need to look at, like that's kind of a big bite to take. But initially, right, like there's a little bit of work up front for this. And then you probably aren't going to be editing or changing these on a regular basis. Maybe new trails come on, you might edit. Maybe you close an area because for improvements or something like that. You may change a route or whatever, but do the initial work up front, get it there. Now, this benefits us, obviously. You're making our platform better. There's no hiding that, which makes it better for our users, which makes us a more valuable, you know, kind of product for our users. So it definitely benefits us. That's why, you know, we call this a partnership, and we'll try to reciprocate with the data and everything else that we do to make it worth your while, because you're putting an effort on behalf of making our product better. But again, hopefully this is helping your users have a better experience and reduce conflict and anything else for land management, land managers, conservation officers, anybody that's out there on the ground. So the next aspect of this is the alerts, or setting alerts. So managing kind of the evergreen data, the trail page and everything else, great. But there's also a lot of information we need to get out in a temporary form. You know, whether it's a closure, whether it's a warning, whether it's, you know, there's parking, or there's a payment or to park or use this trail on the weekends, like whatever it is, all that kind of information. So what we have is another aspect of this. You can like log in and create a really simple alert. And these are really simple to make. It takes like 60 seconds. These are not editing the big descriptions or editing maps or anything like that. This is really like a small blurb and set an alert. Where alerts go is they pop up at the top of the trail page. There's a little bullet. And so it'll be the first thing really people see if they go down to read the description. We're in the process right now of like redesigning our trail page as a whole at AllTrails. And so what we're working on is making these alerts be even more prominent. So when people land on that page, it's be really prominent. So this first thing they see. So you can kind of choose 3 categories: closure, advisory, informational, right? So trails closed, whether it's temporary or permanent or indefinite, whatever, you can set it there to find it. Now, there's a difference in, let me add this, like, so a lot of you will say, hey, I just want to remove this trail because it's not a trail. We have those discussions with you on a one-on-one basis on whether the value of removing it versus just closing it, you know, and how we do that. And, you know, those are kind of like one-on-one conversations based on why we're closing. If it's breaking the law, all of that, right, we'll remove it. But in some cases, what we found is because our SEO is so strong, again, we come up as the top result when people search Google. So if somebody searches a trail that is closed or whatever, then we've come up at the top, and how do we manage that? Good example of this is there's a trail in There's a trail in Hawaii called the Haiku Stairs. It was an Instagram famous, very popular trail. It got closed for safety issues and private land access and things like that. So the question is, do we remove it off AllTrails? Well, we know that we were #1 result whenever somebody searched Haiku Stairs on Google. So what did we do? We could set closure. So now if you go, it's still on AllTrails, but there's, the description is like close, close, close. You'll get fined $400. Like, do not access this, blah, 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 blah. It's closed. So it's really more just an educational resource that we leave it up for to reach the public. Again, you still have violators, you still have people doing it, but there's also 100 other places you can find that on the internet. So we wanted to make sure that if we're the first one they find, that's the message they get, as opposed to a blog or a list someplace else where it's a telling them, yeah, you can break the law, go under the fence and like do that trail, right? Like that's not helpful. So setting closures, setting advisory, setting alert. Cool thing about this, kind of different things. You put a small blurb, you can put a link back to a bigger announcement if that helps, or back to your website. You can put a start date and an end date on alerts. They do not, they can, at the end date, they'll just be removed automatically. So you don't need to log back in and remove it. You can even set it to recur annually, and you can do mass alerts. So if you have like one alert, like wildfire in the area, it needs to apply to 10 trails. You can just select all those trails and say apply to all these trails, and then you don't have to go in and set individual alerts for individual trails, which is kind of helpful. The other aspect of this is alerts go live instantly. They're not moderated by our team, so they'll go back in and look at them as they come up, maybe a few days later. But what we don't want is, all right, you got a busy weekend, you remember to set an alert on Friday night. Well, we don't want you to wait till Monday morning when our team gets in the office to approve it, but you want to make sure that's up for everybody that's recreating that weekend and has the information they need. Anyway, yeah, that's basically alerts. Super quick, super easy. I can give you one example. I did an alert for the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest, which is the national forest right by my house. I saw that they tweeted one day. They said, hey, we have a closure, down trees, our chainsaw crews are going to be out, so please, don't go on this trail, it's closed for 4 days while we clear the trail. I just went in on their behalf. They are a partner, but obviously very busy. They manage thousands of miles of trail, and I went on their behalf because it took me like 30 seconds, and I closed that trail for the days that they had announced. I did this just a few days before. So maybe the alert was up for maybe a week of the 4 days it was closed, just a few days before or whatever. And it was interesting. Great, closed trail. Well, I went back at the end of that week and I let them know. I said, hey, I said this trail is closed on your behalf. Like, hope you had no incidents. Hope all the trail work went great. By the way, I can tell you, and this was an obscure trail. This wasn't like our popular trail right out of Salt Lake City. It was kind of an obscure backcountry trail in the area. And went back and I said, just so you know, in the 5 days that alert was up, I can tell you that like 250 people viewed that alert. They viewed that trail page. They saw that alert. So hopefully we prevented, potentially, not saying all of those people were going to hike that trail. They might have just been looking, but hopefully we prevented, handful of people, maybe 100 people from going up and having a conflict on that trail with your trail crews and seeing the closed sign and whatever else. So again, just to show a small impact. And I think you can scale that across trail systems, right? Like we can reach a lot of people to do that. If we can reach a few hundred in just a couple days with that information. All right, last aspect of this data dashboard. This is kind of our give back to you for being willing to participate in this program, help us refine our data, help us refine the information on our platform. The data dashboard really gives you access into insights that what people are doing on your trails. So again, you can see here, we give you a handful of things, and this data dashboard will continue to expand as the program grows and we see more data needs that you have. But what we want you to do is basically monitor trends and use this data to advocate. And again, this is going back to what I first was interested in when I got introduced to this program. This is what I wanted, so I could go to my state legislature and say, we need more funding because we have more demand for trails, and we have so much traffic on trails in this area. We want to do this project, or we want to give out more money to communities through our grants, or whatever it is. Like, for you as well, I want you to advocate for resources. You can use this for grant applications. You can use these data points to help you, make your case. You can use it to go advocate to city councils or state legislatures or whatever you want to do. Like, what you use this data for is totally up to you. We want to make sure you can say, all right, this is how many people, it's how popular your trails are. So you can see here, we have a few widgets as examples, but you'll see your trails, how many page views those are getting in the last 3-6 months. You can set those dates and see how many people are viewing your trails. Okay. Then from there, you can see how people are rating your trails, how they're talking about it. We also give you a quick digest of like the most recent comments on your trail system. So you don't have to go into each individual trail and say, all right, what are people saying about our trails? You could log in weekly or whenever and say like, all right, the last 5 days, this is what people are saying about our trails. Could be conditions, it could be whatever. And you can use that information to update descriptions, set alerts, whatever, or maybe deploy resources on the ground there. Lastly, we give you access to heat maps. So anybody that uses the tracking feature or the navigate feature on the app, we create heat maps based off of where they're going. So this is really helpful in the sense of like, all right, the route is a loop, people going counterclockwise. Well, you might see that like maybe they're going clockwise and that's the better use. Maybe you change the description because that works. Or maybe you see they get up to a fork and the route says, hey, go right, and everybody's going left. Why is that? And do you want them there? And if not, maybe that means, all right, we're going to go put signage up at that fork to make sure people go the right way, or we're going to change the route, or we're going to change the description. However you want to use this data, like use it to help you better manage and do that. We'll continue to grow, again, the offerings of this data dashboard with information that's helpful for you for advocating and for managing. So any ideas you have as you come on a partner and say, I'd really like to get this data, and see something like that, it'd be, don't ever hesitate to pass it our way, and we will see how we can integrate that in the data dashboard. The other thing we do is we send a monthly digest to all partners to show, here's how many edits you made, or, here's how much traffic you had. So you kind of get a snapshot each month to say like, all right, I made these many edits. We saw this much traffic on our trails. This is kind of some data points that we saw, which is helpful again for you to just remind you and say, all right, like I need to be better about setting alerts, or hey, my alerts are working and they're reaching a good amount of people, whatever it is. Hopefully that's helpful for you. So that's the data dashboard. And again, hopefully that's super helpful. Some of you have trail counters, some of you have other data sources or ways to collect data on what users are doing on your land, and that's great. We just want this to be a tool to help supplement anything that will help you better understand these trends and these insights and what people are doing on trail systems. Okay, I know I said that was kind of the last point, but here's the actual last point. Partnering with us as well, we want to make sure you have the opportunity to take full advantage of our AllTrails audience and platform. And so this is not a requirement of the program. Obviously, we understand a lot of times we're working with, municipalities, government entities, things like that. There's bureaucracy, there's rules of working with private public partnerships. 100%. I came from working with the state. I'm very familiar with the bureaucracy of all of it goes into those kinds of partnerships. But we've had a lot of communities ask us, hey, if we're taking the time to edit information on AllTrails, I'd rather just drive people to AllTrails as our kind of trusted platform, because we know we have control of the data and control of the trail information. And so if I can drive people there, that's great. And then we collect more data on what they're doing. And so we wanted to provide a way to make that easy. One of the ways we're doing that is signage. So as a partner, you have free access. You can create signs, a sign that looks like this, our logo, your logo, with a QR code. And it just comes in a little sticker that you can then put on a trail kiosk, at a restaurant, at a visitor center. We don't care, wherever you want to put those things, and say, look, this is where you can get trail information. That trail information will always be under your control to update, to change, kind of dynamic there. So that's helpful. And then also you are driving people again to use the AllTrails platform, which is free. We have free users and we have plus paid users, but all the kind of general trail information is available for free. It doesn't pay. The paid aspect of it adds, things like 3D flyovers and, special features like that are not required to just find trails and navigate on trails. So hopefully we're driving people to there, and that you're collecting more data as well on where people are going, what they're visiting, what they're doing on the trail systems. So that's one option: signage, like physical signage, but also as partners, we also offer, digital links and backlinks that are trackable and things like that, or, a QR code, not in a printed sign, but we can give you a QR code if you want to put that in a brochure, or you want to integrate it into your own signage, or whatever it is. Whatever can be helpful, that's what we're here for, to hopefully, again, this becomes a poster for us at AllTrails, so we're happy with it just being on the ground and having that, but also hopefully it helps you to drive more people to the most accurate information that you have control over, and helping people get the most accurate information there. So that is the program in that wasn't too short. I've been talking a lot. So, but that was the program. I'm glad we have some time now for questions or anything else. So feel free to put questions in the chat, or, I have contact information here. You can reach out to me separately. Basically, how the next steps would go, if you're interested, you can visit this publiclands@alltrails.com website, or reach out to me. There's a link there, like learn more, and you fill out a little form that gives us information on who you are, whatnot, and then we can start the process of, all right, here's how you get permission, here's how you can get access to your trails on AllTrails, everything like that. Let me just reiterate, this is completely free. There's never going to be like a sign up and in a year from now I'm going to come to you collecting or anything like that. That our CEO and our board is adamant that, like, again, democratizing this information, and that this is a real aspect to make our platform better, and that this is our way to support all the people that are on the ground maintaining, creating, keeping safe, and helping people to get outside, right? Like, this is our way to give back and support in that way as well. So it really is a partnership where we're hopefully giving you something that's super helpful, and you're helping to make our product better. And so there's no bait and switch here that, again, we'll come back and say, like, all right, if you want control in the future, you'll have to pay for it. This is your access and your trails, and we want to make sure that your information and messaging is getting out to our users. So, all right. That being said, I'm going to stop sharing. Take a snapshot of this if you want my contact information or whatnot. I can also share this deck out with anybody after this, and we can follow up with emails and give you the information you need to this website and everything else.
Well, that was great, Pitt. Thank you so much. And Pitt will remember he gave me a one-on-one presentation, which is how I found out about this program too, about a month ago. And that was my question at the end, was like, okay, what's the catch? It's like a timeshare you're selling, and something's going to cost money later. But he assured me it was free, and I'm glad you reiterated that, because that's always front and center. I was going to share very briefly before I open it to questions a great example of, like, one of the first things I did when, again, like Pitt said, when you sign up for the program, they ask for, some information on what trails you manage. So like Pitt said, you can't, unfortunately edit trails in other people's towns. And then there's great instructions, there's great FAQs on the website on how, like, tutorials on how to edit loops. Here's a very popular loop in Mount Misery and Lincoln. Let me just get my annotate here. Spotlight. So this is a very popular, I think it's called, like, the Kettle Hole Trail. And originally the trail went over to the Sudbury River and back out this north trail here. And because this little northern trail right here was super wet, Greenbrier, and we decided, and it was redundant, Lincoln Conservation closed this trail permanently. And so using the public lands platform, I was able to go into this pre-planned loop and edit the trail so that it just avoided it altogether. I mean, technically, I could have had them still go to Sudbury River and back like that, but I just decided to cut it off and do this instead. And then within a day, it showed up lifetime on AllTrails, and it was super convenient. So, like Pitt said, it does take a little bit of practice at the beginning, kind of getting used to the nuances on how to edit the loops. But that was super helpful. I'm sure there'll be some questions about, a bigger holistic question. The fact that we close this trail now, we don't want it to be shown on AllTrails altogether. And I think actually AllTrails has some ability to remove trails, but more importantly, and I'll probably do a follow-up Zoom, and I'll send an email out to people taking the Zoom today about OpenStreetMaps, because really to correct data on trails, OpenStreetMaps is a source that I believe AllTrails populates their platform with. And so we had these crazy trail names that were attached to some of our trails that no longer exist. Our blazes, you can see yellow blaze, red blaze. We totally changed all of our blazes this year to yellow. So I wanted to remove all the titles of our color statements. And some of that AllTrails can do with a one-on-one conversation with them, but a lot of this is all OpenStreetMaps data. And so going on to OpenStreetMaps, which actually I was very afraid to go on and start practicing because I thought it would be difficult, but it was actually super simple to edit trails on OpenStreetMaps and remove tags. You can remove a tag. They too, OpenStreetMaps talk about which trail uses are allowed. So a bunch of our trails that don't allow bikes were marked as bike trails. So I was able to just go in and delete or say bikes not allowed. I was able to note where dogs are required to be on leash. And I was able to do that all on the OpenStreetMaps. I also corrected, we rerouted a trail. So I made that correction on OpenStreetMaps. And within like a week, it auto-populated on AllTrails. And I was like so impressed. So that's the second tool in our trail managing toolbox. That's important to understand. And Pitt, did I describe that connection okay?
Yeah, that is also, it is a frustration for sure, like the OpenStreetMap side of things, because it is our base map. We use Mapbox, like that's all populated, right? It can be tricky for sure because OpenStreetMaps is a lot harder to manage because you can remove something or request get something removed, and then a week later it pops back up and things like that. But we work with them as well. We just we signed another agreement with them to work with them to help better edit their information as well. And with your efforts, then hopefully, we continue to refine OpenStreetMaps to be a little bit better in making sure that it's not just putting every social trail and everything else on there. But it's an ongoing effort. But our routes are the colored lines that you can see, and hopefully most people are following those, and that's what we're really trying to prove here, is that like if we kind of direct people correctly with the proper information, we can mitigate a lot of the issues from social trails that are on other platforms.
Yep. And I'm just going to give you one other tool in our trail toolbox here. That Sudbury Valley Trustees, which is a local land trust, they have a great example of how to use AllTrails and the data on AllTrails, especially ones that have been field and human verified, I guess. But, obviously a lot of us struggle with lack of time and resources, and, preparing specialized trail loops that are family friendly is a great idea. We want to get people outside. We want to find gentle trails that will bring novice trail users onto our trail system, and help them feel comfortable. But we don't have sometimes the time or resources to put together a little 1.5 mile loop at Mount Miz. So what SVT did, which I love, is they have a website called Suggested Walks. And, I just went on, and just started looking at their website under trails, said Suggested Walks, like, cool, let me click on it. And it actually gives you these sort of like, on the level gentle hikes with flat terrains or got 30 minutes. And then each of these, this is just a screenshot, so I can't click on it, but each of these will then bring you to another website that will give you opportunities to click on a couple different trails that match that need. And so here, I think it was like a gentle walk in Sudbury, and I came up and I clicked on it, and basically it takes you to the AllTrails platform, a loop that SVT actually I think created, called, and it's on Gray Reservation, and they have wonderful data or information about the trail that they provide. There's some natural history information. And those of you familiar with AllTrails, what's so wonderful about if it's a designated loop on AllTrails, you can download it onto your phone, and you can hit record and you can just follow the red line as you're walking. And so it really helps with people who are challenged with orientation or navigation, which are a lot of people. A lot of people find orienting challenging. I get lost more often in Metro West Boston than I do in the White Mountains, because every like 200 feet there's a trail intersection, and there's lots of secret trails to people's backyards, and so I am constantly getting slightly misplaced locally. And so having this navigate feature is such a super help to a lot of us. So that's just a great tip for some of us if we're looking to, have easy loops to suggest to people. A lot of these are already on AllTrails as loops, so you can field verify them, you can web verify them, and you could link it to your website as an option. So I just wanted to bring that up. And with that, I do want to be sensitive to time, and we do have some burning questions, Pitt. So some of these you've kind of answered, but I'll still ask them to you in case you have additional info. Some of these are more detailed questions, so maybe you'll have suggestions on how people should find out more information. But Kelly asked about who initially mapped the trails on AllTrails.
Yeah, so that's kind of a combination. Like I said, we have a team, a data integrity team, what we call them. They are always trying to build out our trail resources. Right now, they're more like new trails are mostly focused internationally in markets that we're doing there, and because the United States is pretty saturated with trails, we also have a lot of users that contribute trails. So say you go out and you track a trail, it's a great route, you did a loop and you love it, and you think everybody else would love it, then you can submit that to be a public trail. Now, the DI team will see that and they'll add it. Maybe we already have a trail in the area. This is where it's really key, is we don't want 20 trails coming from the same trailhead, because there's like 3 different loops. Somebody did a long loop, a little loop, or whatever. And this is where it's actually key to have you all involved here, because you say, no, like we're gonna just keep it to 1 or 2 options out of this trailhead for people that they want to do. And then, if people want to explore a little bit more from there, that's fine. But it's just for the better user experience, right? Like if you all of a sudden go to trailhead and you show up and there's like, I got 25 trail options I can do here off of this one trailhead, it's a bit overwhelming. And so whatever is kind of the best option, and that's where we rely on you on the ground to help do that. We can change that and adjust any of those user generated ones that got approved. Not everyone, obviously, that gets submitted by a user gets approved. A lot of people have tracked their own trails and they just keep them privately, but they're not public. If you searched, a trail or something like that, they just have them for their own record. So, yeah, it's a mix of user generated trails, and also, if you have a new trail that gets built, maybe you got a grant or got some funding to build a new trail or something like that, you can add those as well. You can either submit them to us and we'll add them, or you can log onto the program, upload a GPX file. You can do it that way. You can go out and track yourself and do it and submit it, or you can hand draw it on the trail, on the map that you want. So there's a handful of ways that you can add a trail right in the program. If you have a new trail or a trail that's not on AllTrails that you want to promote or you want people to see, you will have access to add those as well.
And with the underlying trail layer, the trail line, I think a lot of that initially came from OpenStreetMap sources that, AllTrails auto-populates. And my understanding, is I do try to correct them on OpenStreetMaps as well if we have a new trail or a reroute, because it's not only AllTrails grabbing that source, it's Map My Ride, it's, you know, I don't know, Bike with GPS. There's all these different programs that are also using that open source. So I think going to OpenStreetMaps and correcting it is a kind of an important tool in this toolbox.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of goes to the next step of this next question. I'll just jump into that from Amy on how do you edit a trail. So there's a handful of ways, again, you can do that. Like if the route is completely different, if the current route is completely different than what you want, you can upload another file, a GPX file or something like that, and totally change that route. If it's just kind of what Michelle was talking about, where she wanted to change that little clip where it went out to the river and through the wetlands, right? It's super easy. Drag the trail system over. It even connects to the OSM base layer. So if there's a dotted line there, it'll just auto connect to that when you drag that. Or you can hand draw. We have the tool to hand draw, to follow a route, things like that. So a couple different ways of how you edit that. Again, uploading a file, hand drawing, or pulling it in one direction and connecting it to another OSM base trail. So,
and then Kelly asked a good question. Will trail users still have the ability to edit our trails, or once a land manager gets involved, that authority is restricted to the land manager?
We still have, so we still have the suggested edit button on a trail. So if I'm an end user and I'm looking at it and I go to a trail and I want to suggest an edit to AllTrails, an end user can still do that. Now, that doesn't go live instantaneously. Anytime anybody suggests an edit, what happens is it goes to our data integrity team to evaluate and see if they accept that edit. But in that case, the data integrity team is the people that are doing those edits from the end users are also your account managers. So they're going to know, hey, this submitted trail edit is a trail that Lincoln City is managing already, and they're a partner in the PLP. So in that case, there's a handful of things they'll do. They'll either reach out to you and say, we just got this new edit submitted. How do you feel about it? They may, or they may say, as a small edit, they may make it live and then just send you an email like, hey, this edit looks good. Let me know, like, here it is. If you want to edit it or change it, please do, type of thing. We're working on hopefully a notification system that when anybody submits a new trail to your area, we'll kick an email or a message to you that says this was just edited, and maybe at that point you can check a box and say like, yeah, it's good, or please don't make live. We haven't figured out quite the flow of that yet, but we hopefully we get to that point real quick, so where you will have kind of control over that, or at least we'll be able to warn you and say, this is a new trail that went live in your area. Now it's assigned to you. You have the permission to edit it, and it's under your purview. And from there, you can make any edits as needed. So,
cool. A good question came in from Brian about how can you define when a trail goes across a different property. And there's sort of two questions that come to mind when I think about this, right? A lot of our trails cross over land trust land, cross over private property, but there's a trail easement. So it's open to the public, but it might be private property. And I do see there's some confusion there's some confusion in the nomenclature on AllTrails, where sometimes it is a totally public trail, but it does cross over private land and it's called private. And to me, that's confusing because we have other trails on AllTrails that bona fide go onto private property. It's a trail that's just a landowner's trail. There's a no, in the field, there's a no trespassing sign, so you can't use it. And AllTrails still shows that as private too. And so it's kind of like, I almost want like two nomenclatures, one for like, it's private land, but public access is allowed. And one that's like, it's private, that you shouldn't be trespassing on. But Pitt, I'll let you get into the nuances there.
Yeah. It's it's hard to answer this with one broad answer here, because like I say, every trail system is unique, and every kind of relationship between land managers is unique, and things like that. But typically, the way this has worked is oftentimes, as long as there's a relationship and partnership between the different land management agencies, whether they're private, easements, whatever, if they can come to an agreement, or there's an agreement that one person is better at just kind of managing it as a whole because it's part of an integrated trail system, then that's who we give permission to. We can still give permission to a land trust if they want permission over their trails, but maybe there's a section that they don't manage because it's just a corner of a larger trail system that maybe the county manages. To give you an example of how this works, so here in Utah, Grand County is the county where like Moab, Arches, Canyonlands National Park, all of that resides. Grand County has a really great municipality, trail team. I think it's called like the Grand County Trail Council and Active Transportation Council or whatever. So they have trail stewards, they have people going out educating, they kind of manage all the signage, communication to all the visitors, millions of visitors every year to this little town in Utah because of the national parks and things like that. There's also huge amounts of federal land outside of the national parks, right? The BLM land and the national forest land as well. And then there's some county land and there's state land and everything else. Well, we talked to the BLM, we talked to the Forest Service when bringing them on, and we said, do you want access to this? And they're like, no, there's like one ranger for 3 million acres of BLM land in that county. And he's like, I don't have time to make edits on these trails. So like, I appreciate it, but like, I'm not going to do anything. And so we said, all right, how do you feel about Grand County? Because they're willing to do this and they, manage that. And they're like, great, we love the Grand County Trails team. Like they're great. So Grand County, the municipality, has the access to edit trails on BLM land and on the U.S. Forest Service land because they have the capacity, the bandwidth, as well as the knowledge, the local knowledge to do that, and the agreements with them to know that the BLM trusts them, that they're not going to like put up a trail that, is unwanted or anything like that. So in that case, that's fine. Kind of they have those internal agreements, or we don't need an official agreement or anything. We just kind of say, all right, Grand County is our point person for all things happening on lands in the area, no matter which jurisdiction is managing. If at any point the BLM wants to come and say, hey, we want access because we want to put up alerts and things, we can do that. And they can both have access to the BLM land, right? Like there's no limit there. They can also make edits. So that helps, kind of define that a little bit better on, if you have multiple, you may have county land, city land, land trust, private land, easements, things like that. If you want to be the point person for that and have management and you're okay with those kind of relationships and the agreement, we can do that for you. If you want to divide it up to 4 different partners that are managing those and you guys coordinate another way, we can do that as well. We're pretty flexible.
Cool. And Ian brought up a good question about, that some trails might cross like regional water authority property where trails are open to the public if they hold a permit. Maybe it's best to put something in the description about parts of the trail may require a permit. Please see this link. And so that again, Pitt was saying you can edit the description of a loop so that you can provide additional information if people need it.
Yeah, I think Ian hit it on the head there, right? Like it'd be so great if the description says you can go 3 miles on this trail and then you're going to hit this, like, and past that you need a permit. Like that's the kind of information that's not getting into the descriptions when an end user submits that or puts that on there. And your knowledge of that would be super helpful, because then people know, all right, if I'm going on this hike, I'm only going to plan on doing 3 miles because I don't want a permit, or I want to get a permit. Great, I see a link, easy to access, go and do the process.
And I think we've all seen informal trails being built, and it's, sometimes as an explorer, it's kind of fun checking out these little informal trails. As a land manager, it drives the heck out of me to try to like close them and get them off of various platforms. But that could be another general statement that is put on a trail description saying like, some in case of Lincoln and probably a lot of your towns, a lot of our trails cross onto private property. They allow public access. Please stay on designated marked trails, and just putting out some reminders like, please do not build informal trails. COVID sort of made me realize how many people, and you know what? I went back to when I was a kid thinking about playing in the woods behind my house. And it was the woods and it was trails and it was my kingdom and it was my fortress. I didn't think about property owner. I just thought of it as the woods. It was like my extension of my backyard. I built forts, I built trails, I picked plants, and I use that as a reference for when I sometimes get really frustrated at what people are doing on our lands, because there is this sort of I think people forget, and yes, some people are doing it deliberately, but I try to be naive and think that, sometimes people just want to explore and have fun, and they forget that these lands that are ours, our towns, are loved and cared for by us. And I think the more we can tell people that, we don't want to like overwhelm them with signage in the woods, but let them know, like, did you know this trail crosses over Lincoln Conservation Land, Land Trust Land, and Walden Woods property? And thanks to all these, landowners who've donated and protected this land in perpetuity. And there's ways of us to get that message out in these descriptions and to remind people that, no, you should not be like building new trails. No, you should not be building jumps. You shouldn't be digging like pits in our trail system to create fun jumps for bikers. And I don't know. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but I do think there's some different opportunities now that we have.
Well,
So I
awesome. Yeah, any other questions or kind of last call here if anybody needs to get anything else off their chest? If not, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'll follow up with some emails. And again, this information, I have everybody's contact, so we can send kind of contact information about how to get started on this, or if you want to read more. And don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions ever. I'm always happy to help and talk through any specific issues.
Yeah, Pitt, this was awesome. And what I was going to say is I will send an email blast out to everyone. I can wait a day or two. So if you have a little blurb you want me to send to everyone, I'm happy to do that. I'll also send a copy of the recording since some people weren't able to make the Zoom today and want to see it. But yeah, any information you have. And again, the onboarding with Pitt is super simple and easy. It really does come down to time and resources on your end. I will say it can get very addictive. Like, I go in the morning, I'm like, I'm gonna spend an hour just like tweaking trails. And like I blink and it's like 3 p.m. and I'm like, oh my God, what just happened to the day? And I mean, I do this a lot on my personal time too. I went gravel biking in Rutland State Park this 2 weekends ago and mapped it on AllTrails. There was actually no, no rut like loop made. And I loved it. The trail I created was awesome. So I sent it, I sent it to AllTrails. I was like, you might want to include this as a loop. It goes by prison camp and a graveyard and really cool gravel trails and flood damage from the Ware River flooding after July. And so it's just fun to do and to participate both as just a volunteer trail user, but now also as a trail manager to sort of have both of those opportunities available to us is super helpful. So with that, I do want to remind people that our next MSMCP event will be September 7th, Zoom, Ensuring Productive Site Walks. And then MACC is having on September 14th, a Young Professionals Kickoff Networking event in Lexington that is sort of geared towards young professionals, but I am going to be crashing that because I love the venue they're having it at. So I'm young at heart, so I think that still counts. But please look into that. MACC has a bunch of events coming up as well. And then if anyone has any questions, like Pitt said, you can reach out to him directly about AllTrails stuff. And of course, you can always reach out to me about anything else. So thanks again. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.